But my favorite detail of the whole painting is this floor. The closer it is to Christ and Our Lady, the more perfect this floor is. And actually, when this floor comes into our space, the viewer space, we see the floor is crumbling, it's cracking, there's weeds growing through it. My name is Father Patrick, and I'm the founder of Christian Art, and we're a few days away from Christmas, and what better...
Here you are. We're a few days to Christmas. Well, this is Christmas already, so Merry Christmas to you. And today is Boxing Day, so go out and visit someone. I'd like to share a video with you, a video of a painting about Christmas. So let's get into the video.
Christmas, and what better thing to do than to look at a beautiful painting here at the National Gallery in London, right behind me. It's Jan Gossaert's Adoration of the Magi, and it's a painting with incredible finite detail which invites us straight into the deep mystery of the nativity. And I hope you like the painting as much as I do.
The National Gallery sits in the middle of London's West End and is home to one of the largest collections of religious paintings in the world, including masterpieces from Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Vincent van Gogh, and many, many more. Founded in 1824,
well, this occasional pause is going to be frequent because, you know, I don't want to be flagged for copyright. But anyways, that's the reason for this cut. So let's continue the video.
Just 38 paintings from a private collection. This year, the National Gallery is celebrating its 200th birthday, and I've been invited, before opening hours, to explore its vast collection of now over 2,300 works of art.
Welcome to the National Gallery and room number 15, which is an important room here in the gallery because it sees the birth.
Well, first of all, I like the fact that this is more like, or he is more like a Christian, and, oh, sorry, did I say more like a Christian? I like the fact that he is a Christian and he explores Christian art. And that's something that is unique for me, and yeah, kudos to him for that.
Of oil paint in Western art. But actually the first painting that you see when you enter is this painting by Jan van Eyck, the Arnolfini portrait.
Oh.
And he was one of the first, if not the first, to sort of master this new technique of oil paint.
This is one painting with so many mysteries hidden in it that you have to look closely to understand what the painting is really about.
So before oil painting in Western art, the pigments of the colors were bound together with egg yolk. The problem with egg yolk is that it dried very quickly, and this sort of thick paste also created these very uneven surfaces, which then for the viewer doesn't always make for the best sort of viewer experience. So with oil, mainly sort of like linseed oil, the pigments were now bound, and what that actually enabled the artists to do was to build layer upon layer upon layer, and actually being able to make corrections which egg tempera did not allow.
In the Arnolfini portrait, Jan van Eyck demonstrates...
Wait, did they move to egg tempera? Okay, egg tempera was the medium that was really hard to blend with, before they moved to this one, mixing pigment with linseed oil, which gave them the ability to blend their works. Yeah.
His mastery of the newly refined oil painting technique, elevating it to unprecedented heights. The medium allows him to achieve remarkable precision and depth, capturing textures with stunning realism, such as the fur coat of Giovanni Arnolfini and the green silk dress of his wife. From the glimmering light on the brass chandelier to the detailed weave of the oriental carpet and the radiant reflections in the convex mirror, where Van Eyck subtly includes a self-portrait within its reflection. Van Eyck uses thin layers of translucent oil glazes to create unprecedented detail. The oranges, imported all the way from Spain to Bruges as a symbol of wealth, are depicted with remarkable realism.
Okay, so this is not the painting we came to see, so I would have to forward.
So the first thing we notice when we look at this magnificent panel is how Our Lady is at the very center of the painting. So if I was to draw two big diagonal lines, then at the center of these diagonal lines, the intersection is the face of Our Lady. So she is at the center. She is ultimately the vehicle by which God brings his own son in.
So what that style of that diagonal crossing, what it does is it makes her the center of attraction in the painting, and that's a style or a technique that the old masters used to use then in their painting. Like Leonardo da Vinci used it in what's the name of this painting? The Last Supper. He used that technique
Into the world. And then we have the Christ child sitting there on her lap. And I think what is very beautiful is that the Christ child is still sort of sitting within this entire blue cloak of Our Lady.
Okay, so I don't think this has been talked about before, but I feel that the blue cloak that Our Lady, that's Mary, the mother of Jesus, is wearing in this painting, there was a point where when blue as a pigment was discovered, it was really expensive. So not everybody could afford using blue in paintings. So blue was used for only the royalties and deities like Mary, the mother of Jesus. So it was out of honor and respect for the person of Mary, the mother of Jesus. That's the reason why they used blue to paint her cloak. So that's the reason why most artists then would use blue, just out of honor and respect for Mary, the mother of Jesus.
She bore Christ in her womb as a kind of the tabernacle protecting her son. But now that he's born, he is still sitting in her lap, sort of surrounded by this Marian blue cloak. The next thing we notice is the two registers. So we have the lower register where all the human figures are placed, and then we have the upper register where the 9 angels are positioned. And the other clear line we can see is at the very middle of this painting is a sort of vertical axis that goes through Christ, through Our Lady, through the dove of the Holy Spirit, and then we have the celestial line.
Okay, so let me not talk about the dove yet, but that's a star, which was the star that led the 3 wise men to the point where Jesus was born.
Light of God the Father, or the Star of Bethlehem, which ultimately guided these 3 Magi to find Christ.
So these 3 Magi are obviously, this whole painting is from the story of the Bible, the birth of Jesus, and these 3 Magi are the 3 wise men.
When it comes to famous scenes, there is arguably no more popular than the nativity depicted in Western art. Botticelli, Caravaggio, Rubens, El Greco all try their hand at exploring this mystical moment. But there's just a few details which make young Gossaerts stand out.
So let's look now at some detail. We see a kneeling Caspar here who's handing over the gold to Christ.
So I think this kneeling Caspar, I think he is the one who commissioned this painting, and this was one of the issues I had with some of these artists of the old, because they were mainly commissioned to do some of these paintings. I feel that some of the details of the painting or some of the stories were altered because they were commissioned. So sometimes it could be that the painting was done to suit the customer's request, or the client's request. And there are several paintings that I know were stories from the Bible, but they were altered because they were commissioned. Let's continue.
Christ is accepting.
But he is the one who commissioned this painting.
This offering holding the coin in his left hand. And Our Lady is holding this kind of chalice above which Christ is holding this gold coin. And I think it's a very beautiful Eucharistic reference, because Christ is almost holding this coin as a Eucharistic host. And it means that the offerings that Caspar brought, or the offerings that we still bring when we go to Mass daily, the priest accepts these offerings And then actually Christ sort of takes these offerings and transforms them into even greater gifts that then ultimately he gives back
Which
to
stands
us.
as the shadow
And then
of what is
on
happening
the right,
now.
we have Melchior, who's standing there, and he's holding this lavish sort of
That's
silver
one
or
of the
gilt
wise men.
silver container, Gothic container, which is holding the frankincense. And then we move to the third Magi, who's Balthasar.
So we're told that the three gifts that were brought by the three wise men to Jesus was gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
Who's holding this magnificent vessel of myrrh. And the first detail that we notice with Balthasar is that in his hat, in his kingly crown, the name of the artist Gossaert is written. So that is the way that the artist has signed.
So the artist, this is one of the ways he signed this painting because of how much he loved it. But it was said that he signed it twice, and I think one of the signatures was in the person behind the painting as well. The person behind, well, you know the person I'm talking about.
This painting. Then in the middle we have Saint Joseph, who's placed here, looking over and watching over the Holy Family.
So now this is Joseph. Joseph is looking frail and old here, and this is supposed to be Joseph, the father of Jesus. And to be honest, I wasn't there, but from a biblical perspective of the idea of the person of, I don't think he was this old. So, but he's portrayed to be old here, and well, maybe there's a reason why he was portrayed to be old here, but I don't think he was this old.
Always in the background, yet always present, keeping an eye on his family, the Holy Family. And there he is, just simply standing in the background. And then another beautiful detail we have, and it's a tiny detail, but a very important detail, because this detail brings the Old Testament into this New Testament scene. And that is this tiny detail there in the capital on the top of the column above Caspar. And it depicts the sacrifice of Isaac.
Abraham. So yeah, this is one thing that artists of the old did. There were a lot of symbols and a lot of meanings that were hidden in their art. Now, if you don't look closely, you might not understand. You might sit and just think that it was a design that was just added to some of the pillars of the house. But you would have to really look close to know that this is what it is. So that's Isaac kneeling down. That's Joseph with the sword, and that's the goat that appeared for the sacrifice. So it's just beautiful, and this is just to say that just as God provided the lamb for Abraham to sacrifice instead of his son, that's how God also provided Jesus, and put it that way, provided Jesus as a sacrifice for mankind.
Gossaert's inclusion of the Old Testament scene of Abraham preparing to sacrifice his son Isaac is far more than a decorative flourish. It carries profound theological significance. Just as Abraham demonstrated ultimate obedience by offering his beloved son, so too does God the Father offer his own Son for the salvation of humanity. This small yet powerful detail foreshadows Christ as the true sacrifice. The column symbolizes Christ as the cornerstone of salvation, fulfilling God's promise and heralding the arrival of the long-awaited Savior.
But my favorite detail of the whole painting is this floor. The closer it is to Christ and Our Lady, the more perfect this floor is. And actually,
so, well, I mean, okay, so now he said it's perfect. Well, it doesn't look perfect to me. It looks very dirty and rough, and plants are growing out of it, which means that this place where they are is pretty old. But I think it's more of, it probably for me depicts the circumstances at which Jesus, the Son of God, was born in. You know, he was born in the manger, and the suffering and everything that surrounded his birth. And from that up until Mary holding the mother of Jesus becomes beautiful. So that's a transition from probably a rough beginning into a new beginning that is beautiful.
The closer it is to Christ and Our Lady, the more perfect this floor is. And actually, when this floor comes into our space, the viewer space, we see the floor is crumbling, it's cracking, there's weeds growing through it. So it's this whole movement of when we as a viewer grow closer and closer to Christ and His Mother, actually the more perfect things become.
Yeah, I think I get now.
As always, art is meant to invite us into the deeper mystery of our faith. So this painting that we are looking at invites us into this whole magnificent and beautiful mystery of the Nativity. But it's always important to think of Christmas and the Nativity not as just a mere commemoration of a historic event that took place 2,000 years ago, Christ's first coming. We also know, and Christ himself said, that there will be the second coming at the end of time.
Yeah.
But there's also this third coming, that is Christ coming to us in the here and now. And how does this happen? Well, this happens through the love that we share with one another, to care for one another, to care for the poor.
And that's the essence of Christmas. Thank you for your time. I think I'll bring the video to an end here. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.